Hello and welcome to the M Perspective. My name is Melissa and I'm your host. So, where do we start? I've been a little bit consumed with work and my personal life lately, and I'm really sorry. We had some new furniture deliveries last week that was terribly coordinated by FedEx. So, it took up way more of our time than we were planning. And our cat recently has not been feeling very well. So, we've been trying to work on figuring out what's going on and getting her all better. John's birthday was also last week. So we spent last weekend celebrating him. So I apologize again. I haven't gotten any content out to you, but we are back and we have a lot to talk about. And the first thing that I definitely want to talk about is Dr. Fauci's emails. So his emails were leaked, I'm sure, as you guys all know by now. And they showed us that the conspiracy theorists were, again, absolutely correct. From masks being ineffective to the total COVID cases early on being lumped in with the flu. That was all a ruse just to kind of push the agenda that we should all be terrified of one another. We should stay in our homes and we should wear our masks for absolutely ever. The fact that Lord Fauci can literally be caught lying and deceiving the American people, and so many people still believe him, is just mind-blowing to me. We have an unwavering faith in our media and elected officials, even when they're caught working against us and just blatantly lying to us for a year. We still support them. We continue to follow their rules, regardless that they have absolutely no basis to what they're saying. I just find it so hard to relate to those who lack the ability to critically think at all. I can't have conversations with those who just blindly listen to other people. So I know that there was a back and forth between Steven Crowder and Ethan Klein recently regarding the CDC and blindly trusting what they say. I would encourage you to go on YouTube and watch the clip where Ethan states that we should just trust the CDC because, they must be right. He and those like him discourage people from doing their own research, applying risk assessment to the vaccine versus COVID, and turn people basically just into walking sheep. Steven Crowder made a great point that while he doesn't agree with what Ethan's podcast is promoting, he still doesn't think that he should be taken down or demonetized because of it. Because on the right, we believe that everybody has the right to state their opinion, even if it's grossly negligent to do so. We all know the risks of COVID based on the data. We can all infer what is best for us based on our health conditions, those at high risk that are close to us, etc. We do not need the big brother telling us whether or not we should avoid the elderly when we're sick. We should know when is a good time to stay home and avoid close contact with those who could be more severely affected if they were to catch whatever you have. Being 29 and getting a cold isn't going to be nearly as detrimental to me as it is for my father-in-law. So he's a cancer survivor. He suffers respiratory issues. It's common sense that we've been applying for years. If John or myself do not feel well, we tell his parents that we will be avoiding them for a couple of days until everything clears up. It's called caring for those around you. I don't continue to wear a mask after I'm done being sick because that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for me to continue to wear a mask when I'm not showing any symptoms. It doesn't make any sense for me to wear a mask in my car by myself. It doesn't make any sense for me to wear a mask in my home by myself. Yet for an entire year, people have been doing this, and people are so uncomfortable with the thought that just maybe that might go away and not be necessary anymore. I went to Wawa yesterday to get lunch, and they had a sign on their door stating that if you are fully vaccinated, you can remove your mask. There were people inside asking if those without masks were vaccinated. You cannot ask me if I've been vaccinated. If you do, I'm going to bluntly ask you if you enjoy anal. Yes, I'm going to ask you that because it is essentially the same exact thing because both happen to be absolutely none of your business. If we apply the common sense principles of don't ask people personal questions that are none of your concern, we would all be a lot happier. We have people running around with 2 masks on, fully vaccinated, terrified to leave their homes for a virus that was modified in a lab to kill us, but probably was not as powerful as they had hoped. Now, that's a sick thought in and of itself because we should not have to fear that our own government funded gain-of-function research to create a bioweapon that would completely wipe off generations from the planet. What kind of lunatic supports this, and how much more do the sheep need to see for them to be woken up? I fear that we're going to get to the point that we're rounding up unvaccinated, shipping them off to camps, and maybe, just maybe, that is when some people will start to wake up. We can see change coming. School boards are starting to change. People are standing their ground. Small counties are turning red. The red wave is real. It was real. And honestly, I think it's just gaining traction. The blue states are struggling because people don't want to live under communist regimes and they don't want to be told when and how they can do basic human tasks. I want to see this conservative movement pick candidates and then rally for them. The New Jersey primary was just this week. And it's a perfect example where you had two Trump loyalists, but because the movement, like the QAnon movement, the MAGA movement, the conservative movement, couldn't just pick one of them, the vote was completely divided between the two of them. So now you had 50% voting for one candidate, 50% voting for the other candidate. And at the end of the day, the career politician won the Republican vote since he was the name that most people recognized anyway. So you have people who aren't in these pro-America, America First movements who maybe are just conservatives, or maybe they're more liberal, but they're not woke. So they're trying to look for somebody who's a little bit more in the middle, who, is moderate and can actually govern their city or their state with, an American first type of principle where, we could be patriots and we can observe our flag and not get offended and all that. But when you don't rally for these candidates and people don't know about them, and the only place that they're getting their news is on local news media or national news media, they're going to vote for whoever they're told to vote for. We watched this happen. Everybody voted for Biden, supposedly. That's a whole nother topic, but supposedly voted for Biden because he was a moderate. But nobody actually looked at his record. Nobody looked into the bills that he said yes to. Nobody looked at the legislation that he's put forward. Nobody looked at anything that this man has done in his entire career and then blindly voted for him because, he likes ice cream and likes to hang out with the kids. It's bizarre, but people do not think for themselves. And the conservative movement needs to know who's running. We need to spread their names. We need America First constitutionalists who are going to uphold our medical freedom. We need our leaders to ban vaccine passports. We need them to unmask our children. We need to stop perpetuating the fear. We need these bureaucrat career politicians removed from the primary ballots. We need to turn these Democratic strongholds red. We have to fight for this. We cannot just pray that the information's out there. I'm a part of Telegram. And while there is so much information and it is such a great resource, it is just not as powerful as Twitter or Facebook. I will continue to tweet. I will continue to post on Facebook to try and get the information to the people who need it the most. Conservatives tend to always take the back seat and we say, well, if it's not affecting me, then let them live. Well, we can't keep doing that. We have to work together to make an even larger movement. MAGA was just the start of turning America red. Here's a fun story, right? So when I was 21, I moved to Arizona with my ex-fiance. He was a liberal, really a socialist, but he didn't know it. Influenced me to support Sanders. We used to watch John Oliver. We used to watch The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, believing that somehow I was wrong for having white skin. My privilege was always showing. For the abundance of reasons, we didn't work out. I ended up meeting my current boyfriend a year later. So when I met him, he told me he voted for Trump. And I'm not going to lie, I was absolutely appalled. I was like, how could you vote for this person? He's a horrible human being. I just kind of spit out everything that the mainstream media told me about Donald Trump and everything that they told me that I should believe about him. So here I had the most perfect man sitting in front of me, and I almost left because he voted for Donald Trump. Thankfully, I didn't. And 3 years later, I voted for Donald Trump in the November elections. So COVID, the summer of BLM riots, everything woke me up. And I know people who woke up in December, January, February following the election. I know a lot of people who have Biden vote remorse. People are not happy that they voted for this because they're seeing exactly what it's causing. They are not happy. It's happening. We are turning red all over. Lifelong Democrats are voting red to try and defeat critical race theory, BLM, culture wars. It's working. Like, people are getting so discouraged, and I understand getting discouraged, but you have to keep fighting. You have to keep fighting for it. It's the only way. It's really the only way to erect a change is to keep being persistent, constantly talking about it. It's why I started this podcast, because I felt like I have so much to say, but I didn't have anywhere to say it. And the more that big tech told me that they didn't want me to say it, the more I want to say it. I'm that type of person. If you tell me that I can't do it, now I'm going to do it. So we need to develop that mentality, and we need to make sure that we are primarying all of these assholes who are putting America last and who are putting their own agendas first. And we need to get people in office that we elect that represent the views of those electing them. That is so important. If you listen to my podcast, you also know that I have a very big issue with gender arguments. I can't stand it. It drives me crazy. So I recently saw that Nickelodeon posted a video of the drag queen singing about LGBTQ rights with a big communist fist at the end of the song. It's disgusting. Masking our children, showing them this type of content. It's just so absolutely gross and vile to me. Children are not old enough when they're watching Nick to understand the concept of sexuality. I don't understand why we cannot let children be innocent and live their lives free of worry and stress for the short time that they're able to. Why do we have to indoctrinate and manipulate the youth into believing in the leftist bullshit ideology that's intended to turn kids into confused, genderless beings strictly because I think they don't want them to reproduce? I think the depopulation plan is very much real and is very much connected to the attack of traditional families. Us marrying and having babies is the exact opposite of what they want. More conservatives is not the goal. Conservatives are generally the hardworking business owners. We are what they hate. And a gentleman on Twitter, I'm sure you guys have seen him circulating finally. His name is Cultural Husbandry. And I now consider him a friend, but he did an amazing Twitter thread on BlackRock. And that recently took off. And I saw like Steven Crowder was talking about it. Marjorie Taylor Greene retweeted it. And it was just so awesome to see somebody who's so passionate about America and what is happening to us and making sure that we don't let it continue, be recognized, because his work is phenomenal. If you have not read it, I suggest you go to his Twitter and you read it. It is all over the internet. You can definitely find it. I saw it on Telegram this morning, so it is there. Please, please go and read the thread. It is very long and it is very worth it. And it breaks down everything that you need to know about how this great reset is being put into play in the real estate market. So I'm a real estate agent. My boyfriend and I own a real estate investment company, and I'm also a property manager for my boss's rental portfolio in Philadelphia. Now, I was up in arms a week or so ago because the rumor that the government was going to be providing people with a $25,000 down payment, which would just inflate the price of homes. It's not actually helping people come up with down payments to buy their dream home. It's not putting them any further if they're just going to list the house at $25,000 above market value. These people still will have to pay taxes, usually upfront, at least in Pennsylvania, you have to pay 13 months upfront, or at least prorated at closing in other states like Arizona. So closing costs are typically anywhere from $8,000 to $11,000. They also have to make their monthly mortgage payments, principal, mortgage insurance, interest, not to mention homeowners insurance, HOA fees if there is an HOA. Buying a home is extremely expensive. And I'm 100% for every single American being able to own their own home and their own property. We owned a home in Arizona, and we're very thankful that we were able to use the proceeds of our sale to pay off the debt that we incurred moving back to the East Coast. Now, we intend to buy here, but the market in Pennsylvania, I know it's like this everywhere, but just speaking of Pennsylvania in general, is so intense right now. And you have these companies like BlackRock buying up all these single family homes to put them into a rental portfolio. So BlackRock is more sinister in their approach. So again, I would highly recommend you go and read that thread because it breaks it down way more beautifully than I ever could. We fix and flip homes, so we're priced out of the market a lot of times because of the insane cost of goods. So at first, all these shortages were blamed on the pandemic, which made sense, but now that's completely ridiculous. This is a part of a plan to leave the working middle class with absolutely no assets. For those of us who flip properties or hold properties for long-term rentals, we make money. They don't want that. They do not want independent wealth being obtained unless it's them or their families. If you have the means, I would highly suggest that you get on Zillow, you get on the MLS, you get on LoopNet, and you look for some land. Buy a parcel of land that you can have or you can go if shit absolutely hits the fan. I know that sounds like a doomsday prepper mentality, but I'm absolutely serious. You need to own land. It is much harder to take it from you when it's already yours. We cannot let them continue to buy up all the single family residences in the country because there will be none for us or future generations to buy and sell. That's part of this. Like you buy a home, you live in it for 3 or 4 years, then you sell it. Or you buy your home, you live in it for 10 or 15 years, you pass it down to your family members. Like it's a very valuable asset. And if we take that away from the American people, the middle class will literally vanish. Everybody will be peasants. Nobody will have anything that is theirs. And we will be forever indebted to the elites. Now, this is coming from somebody who currently rents an apartment. I am renting an apartment and I love it. And I spend a lot of money to rent this apartment. I love the amenities that come with it. I love that if things break, I don't have to pay for them. But I will tell you right now, the first opportunity of a house that's on the market for more than an hour that I can scoop up, I will buy it. I saw Tim Pool tweeting earlier today too, that he's having a hard time getting a mortgage approval, which clearly he should not have one. The man definitely has the money. I have a contractor who's trying to refinance and cash out on his home equity line, and they've been giving him the hardest time to do so, asking for documents after documents, the same documents over and over and over again, almost like they're buying time to allow one of these hedge fund, massive conglomerate companies to come in and like either buy the house from him or do something shady that would take the equity out of the home for giving it to my subcontractor and force it to go to these massive companies. Definitely some weird things going on there. I don't have a solid answer as to why, but it's definitely something to question. Also, a lender that I'm friendly with alerted us that Fannie Mae is not allowing them to lend on investment properties for the next 6 months. So if it's not your sole residence, they're not going to lend on it. Why is that? Like, I don't understand. I think it's partly that these massive left wing funded by taxpayer dollar companies can buy them first. It's giving them the opportunity and the leg up so that the middle class doesn't have it. Remember, you will own nothing and you will like it. I saw that Fox News has been talking about the Rockefeller Foundation and their plan for the Great Reset. And, this is real, people. The Great Reset is real. We're seeing it with all things we just talked about. They're coming for us and they're coming for us hard. I knew this administration would bring with it a plethora of problems, but I did not expect the change to be this rapid. I know the QAnon crowd believes that Trump will be reinstated in August, and I don't know how possible that truly is. Maybe if we can prove that the election was rigged in some aspect, we can get a revote. Does the military step in at that point and run the election? I'm not sure, but I'm curious if any of you are listening and know the answer to this. If you can please tweet me, I would love to have the dialogue as to what that actually looks like if we can prove that there was some sort of fraud in this election. Where do we go from here? Because once we know about it, great, we know about it, but we all already know that there were things wrong with the election. We know that based on how many of us got ballots that weren't accurate, or how many ballots did I receive in so many other states that I haven't lived in for so long. So we know there were things wrong just right off the bat. We didn't need an audit to tell us that this was not a free, fair election. And I don't care who gets on stage and tells me that it was a free and fair election, because it wasn't. But then what do we do? I don't know. I don't know if we have anything in the Constitution that lays out, if you have a soul-sucking leftist who just rigged an election, this is what you do to move forward. So if any of you guys know, I would love to hear it. But my only issue with QAnon, and I know this is like a tough subject for people and everybody gets a little offended, but I feel like QAnon forces people in their homes to the internet and no action is actually being taken. They're mostly on Telegram, which is great. But again, that platform is not far reaching. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, they're very tired of us and they wanted to get us off. And I feel like everybody in the QAnon community switching to Telegram just did big tech's job for them. We need to be persistent. We need to use our voices and erect change. We do not need to be violent. We do not need to stoop to the level of the left, but we just have to use common sense, use our vote, campaign for those that deserve elected positions, use your money on companies that support America. Use your voice. I mentioned on Twitter that this Monday, the 14th, is Flag Day. And I can't imagine being the person that gets triggered by seeing my nation's flag. I actually tear up every single time I hear a patriotic song, the national anthem, a tribute to our veterans. I do not for the life of me understand how there are people growing up in the most privileged way complaining that anyone in this country is treated unfairly on a systemic level. By being born into America, you are already so much luckier than your counterpart in the East. Why are parents not teaching their children how lucky they are and how that flag symbolizes your right to freedom by those who gave the biggest sacrifice for it? Our veterans have to be so ashamed of the future generations. They did not give their lives for you to run around and scream that you're depressed and treated unfairly. If you go to TikTok, you will see kids yelling at and disrespecting their parents. That's where the problem is. I saw a meme too that stated, when you see the children of those in the White House, you start to understand how we got ourselves into this culture mess. We pander to all the wrong people and everybody's creating an issue just to feel like they are special or somewhat quirky. I'm very thankful I don't have kids right now, because I can only imagine the difficulties parents are facing trying to navigate these times. America and the world are completely on fire, and I really urge you to use your voice and wake the sheep up. I hope that this recap of some current events gives you something to think about, a cause to fight for, or, just something that you want to research a little bit more. It gives you a little bit of a spark to go out there and make a change. As always, keep up with me on Twitter at mperspectivepod. Please tweet me any feedback for some of the questions that I've asked and topics that I discussed just now. I love having conversations with you because I feel like we always turn at least one sheep or force them to consider their position at least a tiny bit. And that's really all we can do right now. Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting my podcast. Until next time, stay safe and keep fighting that good fight.